The old village slept. Moonlight painted the narrow lanes silver. A lone dog howled, a mournful sound. I shivered, pulling my shawl tighter. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed to whisper, "Go back." I walked faster, my heart pounding. The whispers grew louder, laced with malice. I dared not look back, fearing what I might see. My destination was close now, the abandoned Haveli at the edge of the village. The Haveli loomed, a decaying giant against the moonlit sky. Its windows were dark, empty eyes watching me approach. The once grand facade was cracked and crumbling, consumed by vines. A shiver ran down my spine. Why had I come here? I hesitated at the entrance, a sense of dread washing over me. The whispers were louder now, urging me forward. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside. The air inside was cold, heavy, and silent. Air inside. The courtyard was choked with weeds, illuminated by slivers of moonlight. In the center stood a massive banyan tree, its branches heavy with years. Strangely, its leaves seemed to drip, even though it hadn't rained. Or were those tears? A gust of wind rustled the leaves, and the whispering intensified. I could almost make out words now, fragments of a language I couldn't understand. It felt like the tree itself was trying to communicate, to warn me. But warn me of what? I ventured deeper into the Haveli, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. The air grew colder, and the musty smell of decay filled my nostrils. I could hear the faint rustling of fabric, the whisper of movement just beyond my sight. Panic welled up inside me. I was not alone. Someone, or something, was watching me. I could feel its presence, cold and menacing, lurking in the shadows. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. Section 5. The Telltale Thud. A sudden thud from upstairs shattered the silence. I froze, my blood turning to ice. The sound was heavy, like footsteps. But the Haveli had been deserted for years. Who or what could be up there? My mind raced, conjuring up images of vengeful spirits and ancient evils. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I leaned against the wall for support. I had to get out of there, and fast. Section 6. The Ancient Prophecy. As I turned to leave the ancient temple, I noticed a faded inscription on the wall. It was almost hidden beneath layers of dust and cobwebs, as if it had been forgotten by time itself. The inscription was in Sanskrit, the ancient language of my ancestors. The characters were worn and difficult to read, but their significance was undeniable. With great difficulty, I began to decipher the words. They formed a chilling prophecy. When the moon is full and the banyan weeps, the past shall return to claim its due. Each word seemed to echo in the silent chamber, filling me with a sense of foreboding. The prophecy sent a chill down my spine. I could feel the weight of its meaning pressing down on me, as if the very air had grown heavier. Tonight was the full moon, and the banyan tree outside the temple was weeping, its branches heavy with dew that glistened like tears in the moonlight. The scene was eerily beautiful, yet filled with an ominous sense of dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The whispers I had heard earlier now seemed to take on a more sinister tone. Was this what they were trying to warn me about? Was I in danger? The shadows seemed to move, and I felt a cold breeze brush past me, sending shivers down my spine. I knew I had to find out more about this prophecy before it was too late. Section 7. The Malevolent Presence. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, charged with a palpable sense of dread. The temperature plummeted, and a cold wind whipped through the Haveli, extinguishing my lantern and plunging me into darkness. I felt a presence behind me, close enough to touch. I didn't dare breathe. The presence was cold, malevolent, and filled with an ancient rage. It was the source of the whispers, the guardian of the Haveli, and it was not happy with my intrusion. Section 8. The Terrifying Truth. I felt a cold hand grip my shoulder, its touch like ice. A raspy voice spoke directly into my ear, its tone filled with malice. "You should not have come here," it hissed. "This place is cursed." Terror lent me strength. I whirled around, ready to face my attacker. But there was no one there, only the darkness and the 2 points of green light that seemed to hang in the air, watching me. Section 9. The Final Confrontation. The green lights flickered and swirled, casting an otherworldly glow across the room. Shadows danced on the walls, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and anticipation. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Slowly, the lights began to coalesce into a semi-transparent figure. It was a woman, dressed in a flowing white sari, her presence both ethereal and haunting. She seemed to float above the ground, her movements graceful yet unsettling. Her eyes, though hollow, seemed to pierce through the darkness, filled with a sorrow that spoke of untold stories and unfulfilled desires. Her face contorted in a mask of rage and sorrow, a combination that sent chills down my spine. Her eyes, burning with an eerie green fire, locked onto mine with an intensity that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. "You will pay!" she shrieked, her voice a mixture of anguish and fury. It was a cry that echoed through the very core of my being, resonating with a pain that was almost palpable. Her voice echoed through the Haveli, bouncing off the walls and reverberating through the empty hallways. "You will all pay for what you did to me," she continued, her form flickering and pulsing with a malevolent energy. The walls seemed to close in, the air growing colder with each passing second. It was as if the very essence of the mansion was reacting to her presence, amplifying her rage and sorrow. As she spoke, her form grew larger and more menacing, her features becoming more distorted and terrifying. I knew then that I was in grave danger. The room seemed to shrink around me, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear and the overwhelming sense of dread that filled the room. The final confrontation had begun, and there was no turning back. Section 10. The Unanswered Question. I closed my eyes, bracing for the worst. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in the silence. I could feel the cold sweat trickling down my back, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The air around me felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the very atmosphere was charged with an unseen menace. But the attack never came. The silence stretched on, becoming almost unbearable. I dared not open my eyes, fearing what I might see. The darkness seemed to press in on me from all sides, a tangible force that threatened to swallow me whole. When I finally mustered the courage to open my eyes, the ghostly figure was gone. The hallway, once filled with an eerie presence, now stood empty, save for the flickering lights casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. It was as if the apparition had never been there, a figment of my overactive imagination. The only sound was the rustling of the wind and the beating of my own heart. Each rustle of the leaves outside seemed amplified, a whisper of nature that contrasted sharply with the oppressive silence inside. My heartbeats were loud in my ears, a constant reminder of my fear and the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was alone, but I didn't feel any safer. The emptiness of the room was almost mocking, a stark reminder of my isolation. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant sound made me jump, my nerves frayed and on edge. The shadows seemed to move, playing tricks on my mind, making me question what was real and what was not. I stumbled out of the Haveli and into the dawning day, my mind racing with questions. The first light of dawn brought little comfort, the memories of the night still fresh and vivid. The haunted building loomed behind me, its dark secrets hidden within its walls, a silent witness to the horrors I had experienced. Who was the ghostly woman? Her image was etched into my mind, her old-fashioned dress and sorrowful eyes haunting my thoughts. She seemed to be a relic of a bygone era, a tragic figure trapped between worlds. What did her cryptic words mean? Her whispers were like a riddle, each word laced with hidden meaning and foreboding. They echoed in my mind, a puzzle I couldn't solve, adding to the sense of dread that lingered. And what was the terrible secret that haunted the abandoned Haveli? The house itself seemed to be alive with its dark history, each creak and groan a testament to the tragedies it had witnessed. The walls seemed to hold stories of sorrow and pain, secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing. I would never forget the horrors I had witnessed this night. The fear, the unanswered questions, and the ghostly presence would stay with me, a constant reminder of the night I faced the unknown. As I walked away, I couldn't help but look back. The haunted house standing as a silent sentinel, guarding its secrets and the unanswered question that would forever haunt my dreams.